Hello and welcome to a fresh chapter of the Turing Boundaryless series. I'm your host, Irina Stetska, an AVP of Sales here at Turing, and today I'm extremely excited to welcome our guest, Mr. Nitant Vaidya, who is the Director of Engineering at Turing. Before joining the company, Nitant has led engineering teams at LinkedIn for over 7 years, and today he brings a lot of AI machine learning experience to Turing. In this episode, Nitant will share a lot about his personal story, about his leadership style, and most importantly, will give us some insights into how Turing is using AI and machine learning to match best engineers in the world with our customers in Silicon Valley. Nitant, welcome to the podcast. We are very happy to have you.
Thanks, Arina. Thanks for having me, giving me a reason to put on shoes and jeans and a blazer. Haven't done that in over 2 years maybe. So very excited to be here and talk to you about my experience.
We are very happy to have you, Nitant. And to start things off, I wanted our listeners to hear a little bit more of your personal story as it relates to your career and what has brought you to this point in your career and joining Turing.
Absolutely. So I started my career in 2013 at LinkedIn as a software engineer. For the first couple of years, I built consumer-facing products at LinkedIn. One of them was a brand new 0 to 1 product that we built called LinkedIn Placements, and others were building content search experiences. So there's influencer content on LinkedIn, there's SlideShare content on LinkedIn, making these things searchable and show up in search results to users. The initial part of this was just very exciting to me because I had come in with the expectation that, hey, I'm going to learn coding and I'm going to do coding as part of my job every day. But very quickly, I realized that coding is maybe 25% of the job. And the rest of it is like, okay, how do I build this to scale? How do I make sure that things degrade gracefully in production and things are observable and we can find out if something is going wrong? How do I design things correctly? How do I get people's support and buy-in, especially when they're not from my team? And it really helped me to have a sort of a mentor figure in my early teams. And then as I continued working at Turing and building things, I realized that, hey, there are like bigger games, bigger stories happening that I slowly started getting exposed to. So when I started working in this Sales Navigator team as a technical leader, I was responsible for the search experience in Sales Navigator. And really there, it was already a mature product. We were taking it from like 1 to 100 as opposed to 0 to 1. There I was part of like strategic discussions, like, hey, where do we want to take the product? What are the gaps today? Why are customers churning? And I really enjoyed kind of a conversation and like thinking about the bigger picture.
So that was the beginning of your leadership journey.
Yes. And I really enjoyed making those decisions and being accountable for the outcome of these decisions, right? And then another aspect of my stint at Sales Navigator was people leadership. So how do you coach other like newer engineers to adopt best practices, or how do you coach them to resolve conflicts and persuade other folks? And really started to enjoy that coaching aspect of leadership. And then I realized that, all right, I can build products at scale. I can improve existing core offerings, but I didn't quite know how things worked at a very low level, because a lot of the complexity, especially as a software developer in a big tech company, a lot of the complexity is abstracted away from you in various layers of infrastructure. So I wanted to go into one of these infrastructure layers and see it up close, so I could really get a good picture of, hey, how is this actually working? And then I had an opportunity in this traffic infrastructure team. So incidentally, the person I worked with, in my first team, and my leader at that time, they were both leading this team, albeit at a higher level. Like one was like an architect, the other was like a senior director, and they said, hey, like this team needs a leader.
So the opportunity presented itself.
Yes, the opportunity presented itself, and I took it up. So that team was called Traffic Infrastructure, and it's responsible for the all the HTTP online traffic of LinkedIn across all products. So it maintains a reverse proxy gateway for all products at LinkedIn.
A critical component. Yeah.
This was hugely critical and hugely visible because every request flows through this. So when this layer has issues, like LinkedIn doesn't load in Chrome, like your Chrome doesn't know what LinkedIn is, and it's just catastrophic. Any failure is just catastrophic. So this was a very impactful team to work at.
Did it keep you up at night?
Absolutely. I was, it did. And I learned probably the most being in this team, because the whole company has requests from you. Any improvement that you make on serving a request applies to every single request. Like with one successfully delivered project, which could take a lot longer because of how critical this layer is, but it could have a huge impact. And also any mistakes would be very visible. So it was just like a very like high stakes kind of a role for me, and I loved it. So that was my team where I fully leaned into being a engineering manager, and I led that team for 2 years, and I was also asked to lead another infra team. So by the end of my time at LinkedIn, I was leading both of these teams, traffic infrastructure and another team called server platform.
Oh, that sounds like an incredible growth journey as an engineering leader.
Yeah.
And now that you're at Turing, Nitant, what made you decide to join Turing? What brings you here?
Yeah, so one of my like philosophies had always been climbing a lot of like hills, as opposed to just finding the biggest hill out there and just keep climbing that thing. Like, who knows like what I actually enjoy. So I wanted to embark on this like exploration. That's why I like build consumer products, build enterprise products, build infrastructure, did people leadership. And then I realized that there are no more hills like that at LinkedIn. Whatever I could explore, I've explored. And I know what the path looks like from here on out for the next 3 years. And the rewards associated with that, both from a professional and a financial standpoint. And the only big change could be changing the nature of the company. I wasn't interested in like a Facebook or a Google. It would just be the same thing, but with a very little difference between that and LinkedIn. Turing came to me at a really good time. One of my buddies, actually somebody I went to school with, he was one of the VCs that invested in Turing had just 2 months ago. And he was telling me about like his like very exciting company you should talk to, and I didn't kind of pay attention to him then. But when the recruiter reached out to me, and I just connected the dots that, hey, this is the same one. So then I spoke to him at length to get to learn more about it and why he was so excited about Turing. That definitely piqued my interest. What attracted me most about Turing was the problem it is trying to solve. I don't think we have fully solved it, but it's just such a huge problem for the world. Problem is like we don't have enough software engineers today in the Valley, period. There is just not enough supply. And there is a great pool of developers out there worldwide who are not in the US, but we don't today consider them enough.
Yes.
So this was a great thing for me to like latch on to. It's like, hey, like this is a mission I can get behind, because I know as an engineering manager at LinkedIn, I both for my teams as well as other teams, everyone was constantly trying to hire engineers, and there was just not enough people, and as a result, they're always hiring, and a few projects will always suffer because people don't have enough people to work on them. So I spoke to the CEO Jonathan and Vijay, and what I took away from those conversations was like they have the right set of values to attack this problem. Like both of them were very, very analytical, very like metrics, experimentation, and like iteration driven, which I think is the right way to approach this problem. And I was ready for that next step of like higher accountability in my career.
So it was good
Glad I took it.
timing.
It was great timing. Yeah.
And it sounds like the Turing also checks a lot of boxes in terms of your personal mission, right? Like you are a first generation immigrant who had to move from India to come to the States to access the opportunity. And now what Turing is doing is disrupting the industry and bridging that gap, right, between the opportunity and the talent.
That's right. Like, many of us here, I'm an immigrant. I grew up in India, and watching all like American shows, American movies, and like the whole American lifestyle is just so big back there, right? Silicon Valley and like just this like constant rollout of these decacorns and unicorns. Like when I graduated 2013, like Facebook was all the rage. And we hadn't even heard of like Uber, Airbnb that were kind of still in the works back then. To me, that was like, okay, we are kind of reshaping like human history at this point with what's happening there. And in India, I would say now the landscape is very different, but back then it was not at the center of it. At that time, India was not really like responsible for driving new innovation. So to me, it was very clear I had to be here. This is where it was happening. And this is where the HQs were. This is where the big decisions were being taken. This is where the people most closest with the problems were. This is where they lived and worked together. So I had to come here. And like there is something about like being close to the opportunity here that Turing is bringing and empowering developers worldwide to get, which is I think is very, very powerful. Like, in fact, I just noticed that like on this cup, this Turing branded cup, like these names of like, early Turing engineers like Mitch, Esteban, Fahad, Kati, like these guys are out there, like they know how to code. And it's about getting these people in front of the right problems, unlocking value for our customers.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so Nitant, how exactly is Turing solving this problem now that you're leading a team of AI and machine learning engineers? Can you share a little bit of details how exactly we are solving that problem with AI and machine learning?
Yeah. Before we can apply AI ML to a problem, you got to have a strong data foundation. So one of the things we do is we collect rich data points about each developer right from their vetting journey all the way to their post-match journey. So we know how they answered test questions. We know how they wrote code for various kind of problems. We know how they are communicating in a live setting, how comprehensively they can talk about their prior work. So we are collecting all these rich data points. We know what universities they've studied from, what companies they worked at. And we have gradations for these, like, okay, this company or this university is actually the Stanford of Azerbaijan, right? So we know these things, and we are collecting rich data points about each developer that allow us to build AI ML products on top. So nothing can happen without this. So other like few examples that I can give about using AI ML. We have automated recommendations that we can, given a job, given required skills, must-have skills, budgetary constraints, location constraints. They may be strong or they may be hard constraints, strong or soft constraints. I misspoke. Where our systems are able to automatically generate a set of developers that are pre-vetted, that are available to work. We know roughly what rates will work for them. And I think this itself is a very powerful thing for our customers to be able to come in, give us, this is what they need, and we have a automated system that can get them results on the same day.
So on the same day. So these days we claim to the customers that we can turn around within 5 days. That's part of our sales page that I participate in every day.
Right.
And so are you saying that in the future it would be within 1 day?
That's right. I mean, we that is what we want to get to. The reason it is 5 days today is our AI is still learning and getting good at coming up with the good set of recommendations. But that's what we are doing. We are with every automated recommendation or even manual recommendation. We're constantly learning what profiles are the customers engaging with, who are they choosing to speak to. If they get on an interview with some of them, what happens to the interview? If they fail, what are the reasons why they're failing? And we're collecting rich data about every step of this matching process that allow us to constantly get better with our ranking, with our recommendations, with detecting cheating, with even identifying what are good salaries for somebody with a certain seniority coming from a certain geo. Like having that overall view about the entire economy of this kind of remote economy and all kinds of tech jobs, it really helps to solve some of these problems.
Yeah, that's an incredible work we are doing, and sounds like we are constantly improving that, right, with our models. So Nitant, in my customer-facing role, I talk to customers every day, and they impressed every time they see the product. It's very unique, and they're really impressed that they can search global engineering pool within just a few seconds, get results. So I wanted to ask you, since you are at the forefront of building this product, how do you ensure you actually build a solid product and improve it constantly as the company evolves?
Right. I think the core of this comes to identifying the right set of developers. Everybody can learn how to code, and everyone can claim they know Node.js or React.js. How do we really know? So it's really about having a solid vetting platform that filters only for the actual best people that we can find. On the flip side, as we select for top developers, we also invest in selecting for top customers. And better than me how many customers that we speak to who need engineers, but we don't qualify them today, is because we're looking for professional organizations. We're looking for workplaces with some mission, with enough funding, where our developers can be successful and can build their careers, right? We're not building a gig platform.
That's right. We're very selective.
We're very selective with our customers, just the way we are with our developers. So we can promise them kind of a steady job, steady income source, and not have to match them every month, because what developer would like that, right?
Exactly. We wouldn't it's more a career path than a gig. Yeah.
That's right. So with selecting for good customers, we are actually selecting for good developers, because good developers want long-term jobs. So I think that is the core of getting this marketplace right. And secondly, as I said, matching is an algorithm which we cannot nail on day one, and we have to learn. So whatever we do, be it our matching algorithms or products built on top of with packets and interviews and all of that, the goal has to be that every step is measured. The metrics we want to improve are attributed to the right things, and we are constantly experimenting with launching new things, measuring, learning from that, and improving. So one of Turing's core culture is continuous improvement and moving fast. So these two pillars of our culture actually directly lend themselves to solving this problem better. It's just not possible to wake up one day and hey, I had a dream, guys. The matching algorithm should be as follows, and this will be the perfect thing. No, we have to learn every day, and this thing changes. And the actual logic for what makes developers stand out to customers, it may differ between a backend developer or a DevOps engineer or a data scientist. So we have to constantly be measuring, iterating, and moving fast.
Yeah. So Nitant, that's a great point. You touched on the culture as being one of the key pillars. So as an engineering leader, how do you create a unifying culture, especially in the teams that are distributed globally in this remote first world?
Yeah, I think that's quite a challenging thing to do. And humans haven't done this at scale. We only started being remote at a big scale like 2 years ago, and I'm certainly not amazing at it, but I'm trying to get better. My general approach is three things. So one is like over communicate. Communication has to be everyone has to double down on it, and by everyone I mean individual team leads, PMs, ICs. Everyone's got to be writing on Slack. Everyone's got to be like posting looms, writing wikis for projects, for launches, for what we learn. Like this has to be over communication of all kinds, because we're missing a lot of the like water cooler moments, right? So I think like tripling down on communication is one of the pillars. Secondly, like being very clear about why we are doing something. What is the goal? When is it successful? And when something is not successful, holding people accountable for that. And when it is successful, like celebrating wins. But we can very quickly go off course if people don't know what our goal is. What is our goal for this month, for this quarter, for our team, for the larger organization? It's just being really crystal clear about these things. And like some of this has to come through like a wider, like all hands, both at the company level and at an org level. Kind of ties back to the communication piece, but a lot of clarity on goals is super, super key. Thirdly, and again, this is, none of the first two things are also what is applicable only to a remote setting. I think to be successful in a remote setting, you use most of the same things that you would use in a in-person setting too, like leadership, culture. Those things don't change, but I'll still mention it. Third thing is, of course, earning and maintaining the trust of your stakeholders, customers, partners. And that happens when you consistently show up to what you promised. And you could be an IC who's promised like delivery of a feature. You could be a tech lead who's promised a API support to another tech lead, or you could be a designer who's committed to some design OKR for the quarter. Constantly checking in with your customers and your dependents on how things are going, and maintaining that trust is super key. Because if you suddenly if your customers stop seeing that progress and they're not really seeing you every day, it quickly kind of falls apart. So you just consistently have to show up. And as a leader, I have to encourage this in my organization and call out when it doesn't happen. So hold people accountable for this. But really, like, my job will be I will be successful when everyone sees it that way.
Absolutely.
And everyone approaches it, in that way.
You have to practice what you preach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those trusting relationships are extremely important. And especially I love that you mentioned building trust with the customers as well.
Right.
That's what we are trying to do every single day, right? It's
right.
extremely, extremely important.
Right. I like to, I encourage like PMs and tech leads to directly talk with customers. It's like, hey, like, why don't you explain to them what happened when they saw this issue, and they were nice enough to report it, right? So
learning from the source.
Yeah, but feel free to like reach out to them and like explain if like the issue has gone away, or maybe a little bit about what happened, so they feel more connected to the overall business and the why of like why do we exist.
That's a great recommendation. And Nitant, do you have any other recommendations for our aspiring engineering leaders who may be listening to us today on any leadership tips?
Yeah, care about the why. You are not just a engineering leader responsible for a product or a system. Like you should know why it exists in the larger mission of the company, and feel responsible for the strategy, roadmap, and direction of that thing, and not just take a technical view of it. This applies to anyone, regardless of whether you're in a startup or a big company. But really, like, that's where the value is. Like, the value isn't in just building features, but like, okay, what do we do after this, and like, why are we really here, and like really thinking from first principles there. It is not the job of the PM, the designer. They're there to help you, but you own it along with them to do what's best for the business.
I love that. Do you think it's more challenging or less challenging to be a leader in a remote first world?
It is more challenging because it is more unforgiving, and many of the like, let's say you have, like, you're managing a report, and the report isn't doing too well. They're maybe in over their heads about some project, and they're really struggling. If you see them every day, like, you're gonna notice that. You're gonna, like, you'll have many opportunities to have informal check-ins and chats to detect issues and also rectify them. You don't have that. So you have, Zoom calls and like one-on-one, like, discipline. Like, it's just, yeah, it's hard. And that's not the only issue. We're all doing this for the first time, really, and I think best practices will take a few years to emerge, of course, but it is definitely harder.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And so, since you mentioned it's a big experiment, right, and we are all learning, what is your prediction? Do you think the future of work is fully remote, or do you think it will come back to a little bit of a hybrid structure?
I don't think there's gonna be like a fully remote or a fully in-person thing. Like, I think there will always be holdouts, and for good reason. Like, there are parts of knowledge work that do not happen efficiently remotely, and I do fully expect those companies to go back to an in-person culture. But for a large majority of, like, especially software engineering and a few other classes of knowledge work, a huge chunk will always be remote. But then again, for those folks too, I do expect them to, like, meet their colleagues, their wider group once in a while, maybe even the whole company. I mean, I don't know if you want to call that hybrid. I don't want to call that hybrid, but at a high level, like, yes, like, maybe millions of people will continue working remotely forever, with like maybe one day FaceTime with colleagues in 3 months.
Or meet in person for lunch or an offsite. That feels extra special, right?
Yeah. It is really something. Yeah. It's quite magical to, like, meet. This is the first time I'm meeting you in person too. And you can just understand the other person much better. You can, it's very hard to bond remotely. So there's definitely some downsides there. And especially for people who are a bit early in their career, who haven't quite had that experience at, like, building big things, which will expose them to the challenges, to leadership issues, to communication issues, and like those engineers and those ICs and product or design, like, they need a mentor stat. They got to be working with somebody who's telling them these things and, like, helping them bridge this bit of a disadvantage that they're at. Of course, it is great for, mids or senior in their career folks, but folks who are junior should recognize this bit of a gap that is going to affect them in some ways, and prepare against it. But yeah, this is, like, there's no going back on this one. Like, COVID is on, down. We're almost done with the pandemic, but this is genius and going back in the water. Like, a vast majority of tech jobs will continue to be done remotely because fundamentally the economics, like, speak for themselves. The commute time, cost, and especially when you look at Turing, like, international engineers, like, there's a huge cost differential. Which is gonna help bring, like, a lot of supply to meet these unmet jobs today in the industry.
And also a great opportunity, right? So the engineering talent worldwide is, I think, around 29 million engineers, and in the US it's only 4.5 million.
Yeah.
So definitely such a large gap.
Yeah.
That can only be addressed in a remote world.
Yeah, absolutely, and, like, 29 million international engineers, you said. If we even find the top 2 million developers and make that a, pre-vetted, available to work, like ready to go engineers for companies in the valley, like that would be a huge thing for these companies to move fast and deliver value for their customers. But to reflect a little bit, so I've been at Turing, right, for over a year now. And every engineer that works for Turing, for our internal team, has been sourced through the same platform. They've all been developers who signed up on Turing. They've gone through our vetting flows, and we dog food our own product, right? And having worked with so many of them, and also have worked like for 7 years in the valley at LinkedIn, right? I know that like these guys are good. Like they know how to build products. They are missing exposure. They're missing some mentorship because they've not built things at scale. And really, like these kind of valley companies, like they're the only ones who have seen true scale. So they're missing some of that exposure and the ability to market themselves. They don't know how to describe their work, their leadership aspect of their work, or their or even their successes. It's a little bit hard for them to do that. So I'm actually proud that Turing is helping these people, like developers and also working at Turing is like getting a free geography lesson, right? So I work with
all the cultures.
So Turing has 103 engineers as of like a month ago. And out of these 103 engineers, they come from 28 unique countries and 84 unique cities.
That's such an impressive number.
It is crazy. Like I've worked in orgs with like 2,000 engineers, and you do not see this kind of diversity there. This is unheard of in any tech company in the valley. So it's crazy to me that like there is so much diversity out in this pool today, and we are helping this set of engineers get real world, like prime time exposure with top tech jobs that are going to permanently change their hireability, right? That's going to permanently up-level the kind of jobs they have access to. And like the whole Turing Eng team has that as their mission, right? To help people like themselves. I just think that's a very powerful thing, and that's why I go to work every day.
Very life-changing. I'm definitely there with you, since I'm also a first-generation immigrant. Those stories make my day every single time when I hear how we change someone's life by placing them with a customer in Silicon Valley. They wouldn't otherwise get that opportunity if it wasn't for Turing.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, not just you, right? I think like both our founders are immigrants. Like both of them grew up in India. Like a lot of the exec team is, and there's definitely a lot of that like immigrant hustle culture and like perspective of how the whole world sees like Silicon Valley. So we have that kind of the developer mindset towards these jobs, and there's also a lot of experience that all of us have working here, so we know the other side of the story.
We are all on the same mission.
That's right.
So Nitant, this has been an extremely interesting conversation, wide-ranging conversation. I really appreciate your time. Do you have any closing comments or thoughts for our listeners today? To those of you who work in technology, there's history being made out there. So something if I wish I could tell my younger self, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, is to go out there and be part of a story. For me, the story is about Turing, but for each of you, like I encourage you to find a story like that, a mission that speaks to you, and be part of it, because many of these will win. Many of these narratives, these companies out there who are applying today's technology to today's problems in a new way. This is like a gold rush. Like if I were to make a parallel with that era, and something I always felt being inside a LinkedIn, just an amazing company, like I owe a lot of my success to,
but you're looking at these things from the outside, like it's like, hey, like this Snowflake came out of nowhere, and it's like it's huge company, and there's so many like that. Roblox, I can't even name them, and it's just like you owe it to yourself to be part of, or at least try to like be in one of these companies and really gain that exposure. If you really want to challenge yourself and be part of a story, and at the end of like 10 or 15 years, like have interesting stories to tell about, like make or break moments, right? So to me that was very and I continue to get that pleasure out of Turing, and I encourage everyone to do that. It's just a gold rush out there.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation, Nitant. And so what is the best way for people to get in touch with you and to stay connected if they wanted to?
So I'm not much for social media presence, but you could reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I lurk, but I don't post.
You're still loyal to LinkedIn.
Yeah, always. LinkedIn will always be special to me, and so will Turing. But feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter for if you guys have any questions about Turing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nitant. It has been a great conversation and a pleasure having you here.
Likewise, I had a lot of fun chatting, Arina. Thanks for doing this, by the way. Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode of Turing Boundaryless Series.